stopped in at this store and it randomly had snow gear and sweaters and long pants. And I mean, we were from Arizona.
Yeah,
we were living in Arizona, and it's not like it got cold there or it had snow.
Yeah. Well, from Mesa to Rexburg, these are two little Mormon town things.
Yes.
At the opposite ends of the temperature spectrum.
And it was January 1st.
Welcome to Sacred Stories, where we illuminate the faith journey of people who have found fellowship in the metaphorical wilderness. Today, Janine and I will be interviewing each other in order to share our unique faith journeys.
You know, we were moving there on the new year, and so we were going to cold. We were going from the perfect weather in Arizona to cold. And so, anyways, we bought all this snow gear and stuff at a really great price. It was like the Lord just kept saying, yes, this is definitely, it's like I needed reassurance all the time. Are we sure we should go to Rexburg? I know, I've never been there, The
Lord's like, no, yeah, this is good.
Yep, this is it. Here's the clothes you need. Here's the coats you need. Here's the, here's the job. Here's the...
Oh, wow.
So we moved, but I only had 4 children in the house at the time because the others had all graduated and some of them had married. And so we moved with these last 4 kids to Rexburg on January 6th. And it was just crazy. So, and it was funny. It's not funny. It was heartbreaking. I bought a car. I bought a car specifically to go there that would be better for the snow. And it broke down we hadn't even got out of Arizona yet. And it broke down and needed so much work. It was insane. And so the guy is like, this car is not even worth it. And I just bought it and I didn't even have the title yet. That's how new the car was. It hadn't been mailed to me. And the guy's like, look, I'll just sell you this car for really cheap. It was a big Suburban. He's like, I'll sell you this Suburban. And I have it just sitting here. So I bought his Suburban, left my car that I just bought. Anyways, the point of this story is that the Lord made sure I could not turn around and go home. That was the point. He got me to Arizona and then made sure I did not have the funds to turn around and come home. Okay. I was meant to go to Idaho.
Yeah.
And Idaho was a wonderful experience. Living in a town where there is so much priesthood, you could feel the difference. All those college kids coming off their missions, you could feel the difference just living in the town. I'd go from there to Idaho Falls, and you could feel the difference as you left.
Yep. About
St. Anthony, you could start feeling the difference. And that was wonderful. We talked about being young and just being able to go all over town, walk all over town. My youngest was 10 at the time, and he could go all over town.
Yep.
He could go to the water park. He could go to the little game store in little downtown. It was 5 blocks away, and you felt totally safe having your kid run over because I worked full time. And so he just would walk to his brother's house.
Yeah. It was made for walking. That whole city is ready for you to walk there.
Yeah. He could get on his bike, go to his brother's house. So most of my kids ended up moving from Arizona up there. I had several go to college there. I had my brother come from California to go to college there. He met his wife there. I have a younger brother that's the same age as my older sons. So my mom had 2 boys the same time I was having my oldest 2 boys. So I have a brother the same age. So he came to college there and met his wife there. My son came up to college there. My daughter, who came to Idaho with me, went to college there and met her husband there. That's Sarah, who you know.
Was it Rick's or was it BYU Idaho at this point?
It was BYU Idaho.
Oh, okay.
It had just transferred over a couple years before. Was now a 4-year college.
Cool.
Yeah. So that was a great experience to live there. We lived there for a few years. And then the Lord Well, my kids moved up there and then moved away, got their degrees and moved away. And I was struggling at work, and the Lord just said, "You're moving back to Arizona." So I moved back to Arizona and helped several of my children that were there. I tend to go, when I didn't have a husband anymore and most of my children were gone, and I just had this youngest surprise child who was wonderful. I love the surprise child. He was a gift to us when I lost my husband. He seemed to help the other kids heal. Most of the other kids were in their teenage years or adults, and he just helped them heal through it. And he was my person when I could have gone into depression and been sad. He was you can't stop camping. This child needs this experience. You can't stop hiking. You can't stop. And in Rexburg, oh my gosh, you could go to plays and concerts and everything for like $6. And so he got to experience all kinds of things, magic shows and plays and things we got to do that I couldn't afford to do with all the other children. And so that was wonderful. But we ended up back in Arizona. And then he got the life that I didn't want my children to have, where we moved more often, So, yeah. So I ended up back in Arizona for a while, and I'll save how I ended up in Missouri.
So Phoenix or Mesa when you went back?
Mesa.
Okay. I lived in Phoenix I lived in Tucson.
Oh, wow.
When I was like 12. So for one summer, my parents and some of our family friends traded kids for the summer.
Yeah.
So the girl that was my age, who was my sister's friend, stayed with my family, and I stayed in Tucson with them, and the guy that was slightly older than me that was my sister's age. So I lived with their family, and she lived with our family for the whole summer. So I spent Tucson, which, if you're going to go to Tucson, don't do it in the summer. But, I was only 11-ish, so what do I know about a bad time to go to Arizona? But so I have memories of that area of the world. Tucson's a little south of all that, though.
It is. I don't know if you remember a bridge in Tucson that looks like a rattlesnake. Okay.
I remember riding bicycles all over dusty roads. And that's what I remember. And some cactuses that I accidentally backed up into while I was wearing shorts.
Oh, no.
Oh, my calf was just... Those are my memories of Tucson.
Yeah, those are about correct memories.
That's all I got.
I went to the Museum of Retired Airplanes.
Okay.
That was really cool. We got to tour an Air Force One.
I don't know if I was in Tucson when I went to a air museum like that, but I have memories of that sort of thing, like just a big hangar garage thing and all kinds of interesting old craft and stuff. That could have been there. But yeah.
There's also one in Layton, Utah.
I haven't lived in Layton.
Well, I haven't either, but I've been there.
But you did there.
Because I had kids, so we went to that kind of stuff, just to experience stuff.
That's where the Utah Air Force Base is, isn't it? I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it Hill?
That sounds right.
Yeah, Hill Air Force Base. Anyways, I toured the dead airplane museum in Tucson with my kids one summer. We went camping up on the mountain near Tucson and went down to the airplane museum while we were there. All right. So... But my brother-in-law is a welder, and he built that bridge, the Rattlesnake Bridge. Okay. If you walk under the tail at one end, it actually makes a rattlesnake sound. So
it doesn't just look like one. Like somebody took the time to try to reinforce the motif. Nice.
Very Arizona, right?
I mean, you might as well. I mean, how boring is it if nothing has flavor?
Well, the dusty roads, they got to do something to draw people.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So let's see.
All right, so it's your turn to talk about being an adult.
Yeah, that gets you through the raising kids, basically. So let's see. That's for me. I didn't meet my wife till I was like 27.
Oh.
So I got home off my mission. My parents were in Chicago, and I got a job because that's not hard to do in Chicago. And I was there for 5, 6, 7 years, just going to work and not worrying about it. And then I met my wife over a game of Uno, and we got married that year. Like it was.
When you knew, you knew, huh?
Yeah, when you knew, you knew. So yeah, we got married in December timeframe when I was 27 or 8-ish. Probably 8, because I was 27 when we met, I think. I remember, so they say Brigham Young believed that once you're 27, if you're still single, you're a menace to society. And yes. I remember knowing I was a menace to society. So I must have been 27 while we were dating. And I may have been 28 when we got married. But anyway, yeah, that's neither here nor there. But so that was when we got started. So there's really not a whole lot that goes on there in that period of my life in terms of like events. I worked a lot, and I was a Cub Master for a ward. And then we got married. We almost immediately had my oldest daughter, and that's when we moved back to Rexburg. Because that's when I realized if I don't get back to school, I am not going to get back to school. Because see, I'd been putting it off 1 year at a time. I'd been like, well, you know, I just got a raise. There's no reason to leave. You know, you go to school so that you can get a better job, and I have an okay job. So I had been putting it off until that moment.
So you went back to Rexburg as an older person with a child, and that is a different experience. Because my son came to Rexburg married with a child, and that's a totally different experience than as a student.
It's totally different. Because I remember being just a single 18-year-old just there to have fun, and it was way neat. And that was before iPods, so there weren't people walking around like zombies with something in their ear, not aware of you. Everybody that you crossed at the street or at the sidewalk or whatever would be like, hey, hello. And it was an amazing place that I did not know what to do with because it was so open and friendly and inviting. And then I went back as a married person, and of course, I'm not there to meet nice people. I'm there to go to school. I'm there to do these things. I got something to worry about.
You now have to go to a family ward that really doesn't have any children except for these babies.
Yes. But I had a real job, so we went to a Rexburg ward, not a BYU Idaho ward.
Oh, okay.
So we were living in the housing area, not like school housing, after we had got there and been there long enough to move in. And so there was still a lot of elders in the elders quorum, but it wasn't like the married wards where, like, there were married wards that had 2 elders quorums because you can only have 96 elders in an elders quorum before you have to split it. I was not in one of those wards.
Okay.
I was in a family ward. But yeah, it's interesting being in a family ward where half the people there are like teachers and professors and stuff. And you're just some 30-year-old guy who's like, yeah, I'm here going to school because I kind of messed it up 10 years ago. Yep. So it was BYU Idaho at that point. And it was fun. So we're there, young family. My oldest daughter was old enough to attend, like they have a preschool for people who are learning to be preschool teachers. And so they do all kinds of neat stuff because they have this lab where the kids are supposed to learn all the fun activities and they need kids. And I'm just like, I have a little kid who would love to do all these things. So she got to do like free preschool that was lots of fun. So that was us growing up. We were there until, 2008. The economy went, ew, and Rexburg basically just like closed their doors. Economically speaking, they know how to hunker down in the middle of nowhere, Idaho. And so they said, oh, the economy's feeling tired. Let's just hunker down. And so we were like, okay, it's time to move. So I had to move at that point. We moved to St. Louis. That's where my parents were. I was in their basement for a couple of months while we found a job here and then bought a house in St. Louis area. well, St. Charles. Is there anything else story-wise that you want to cover that's part of this part of your life?
I guess how I ended up in Missouri.
Yeah. How'd you get here?
So, in the middle of COVID, I got a blood clot in my leg. And blood clots are normal. People get them all the time. But I almost got my leg amputated because it swelled so bad. And I spent 10 days in the hospital. I didn't lose my leg, but I got extreme anxiety. And I couldn't work. I couldn't handle it. So I became free in the middle of COVID. And so I had a son in California. Him and his wife worked for the hospital. And so one day I'm just in bed. So that's where I was a lot with this leg, because I couldn't walk or move. And it was really, I bled into my back. I should have died. I needed 10 pints of blood. You only have 12 in your body. And I should have died. So this was a big change point in my life because I had been working. I didn't have kids at home anymore. And so I'm like, I just worked. And I worked from home. And then I couldn't work. And so anyways, I'm in bed and the spirit is like, call your son in California and offer to babysit his kids. So I called him and I said, the Lord just told me I need to tell you I'll babysit your kids. And he's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. And anyways, he was having to put cameras up in his house and leave his 10-year-old and 8-year-old and 6-year-old at home because during COVID, all the babysitters could make more money on unemployment.
Yep.
So he didn't have a babysitter. The schools were closed. And he didn't know what to do with his kids. And he was really facing this. Well, only the Lord knew that. I didn't know that. And so when I offered anyways, the point is that I went to California for a school year and babysat these babies and helped them do online school. Well, I mean, this was a change in my life from working to not. And so the Lord used me there for a school year. Then I knew during that school year that I would spend the next school year in Arizona, and I didn't know why. But my dad got his leg amputated. And so I moved to Arizona, a little town, Concho, Arizona. It's near Sholo, if you're familiar with northern Arizona. And so I moved there for a year to help my dad get situated with his house and his care, and my brother took care of my dad. But I went there for a year. And I thought, this is great. I don't have children. Well, my niece died and she had a boy about 15. And so right when I moved to Arizona, he moved in with me that day. And so now I had him. Anyways, I was in Arizona taking care of my dad, and I quit being the shy person about 18. I decided I would go to a singles activity and meet 3 people that I needed to change who I was and become outgoing to survive in the world. And so I changed. And here I moved to Arizona, little teeny town, and I start volunteering at this secondhand store that takes care of the community. And I start being a temple worker twice a week. And I'm just go. And I'm helping at the food bank and doing all this stuff. And my dad's like, I've lived here like 12 years and you are busy. But that's me. I'm kind of got to be in motion all the time. So I ended up there, which was great. And I'm like, I love it. A little town, little house. It's so cool. I'm going to stay here. But no, my daughter suddenly moves to Missouri and her husband decides to leave her, and she's got 7 kids. And so I'm like, she's in Missouri all alone. I should go to Missouri and help her for the summer when her kids aren't in school because she'll be overwhelmed. And so I go to Missouri for the summer, thinking I'm going to go back. I have a surgery scheduled and everything to go back to. But I get to Missouri and she's overwhelmed. And she's in a state of, her husband left her. And so she has shut down emotionally. And there was so much need. And so
you said, this is where I want to be. This is the place.
I'm like, I can't leave.
Yep.
I can't leave. So I told my kids I was not moving to Missouri, and yet.
So here you are.
I moved in with my daughter, and then a year and a half later, my brother, who was taking care of my dad, suddenly dies. And so I'm the one who had to take care of my dad because all the others have little children. They have homes with multi-layered leveled homes. They have little kids. They have full-time jobs.
Did you take care of your dad in Missouri then, or did you move back to Arizona?
I brought my dad to Missouri.
Okay.
I sold his place and I brought him here because I felt still needed with my daughter. She has a 100-year-old house. We were putting in windows and new flooring and insulating the place. And so it was like a full-time job helping my daughter. And so I just brought my dad here. And so now I'm here with my dad, and that's how I got to Missouri.
So you haven't been in Missouri that long. Just a few years.
3 years.
Wow.
Yep.
We've been here 10, 15 years. So, wow. And I don't feel like we've been here that long. But, well, cool.
I have not been here that long. But I'll tell you, 3 years ago, I live in Cameron now, which is 12 minutes away from Hamilton. My daughter moved to Hamilton, and we were the same stake. Now we're in different stakes. We were in the same ward. No, well, not the same ward, but now we're in different stakes, totally. And our stake centers are even different. But I will tell you a story.
Yeah.
So my daughter moves to Hamilton, Missouri, and that's where the Lord brought them, right? They bought the house sight unseen through the internet, which probably was a mistake.
This is the 100-year-old house.
This is a 100-year-old house.
Okay,
Yeah. But it was affordable and it works. Anyways, I'm in Hamilton living at my daughter's house, and I am out running errands, and I see this millstone. And I love family history. That's totally been my thing since the day I got baptized, has been doing family history. And so I had seen a newspaper article my grandma had, and because I was entering all that stuff into family history, into the genealogy website. And I had seen a picture of my grandfather sitting on a millstone, and that it was his grandfather's millstone. And so I see this millstone in Hamilton, and I'm like, oh, that's a real millstone. I'm going to go over and look at it. And I walk over to it, and sunk in the ground is the plaque. And my grandfather's name was James Lawrence Ritchie. And the plaque says Ritchie Millstone. And I was like, no.
You're like, what?
No. So I immediately go to the library, and I'm like, do you have history books of the local area? And so they bring me to those books, and I flip through. They got a list of names in the back, and it's Ritchie. And I go to that page. Here's the whole history of his grandparents that had a mill in a few miles out of town, and their whole history, and that he grew up there riding the horses that ran the millstone. That was his babysitting thing when he was little. They'd put him on a horse that walked in a circle. And so I read this whole history about so the point is, my daughter moves to the same town, okay, that my family's from when the Saints were here. And they moved, when the Saints left, they moved and helped found Lamoni, Iowa, which is an hour away. And I'm like mind blown because my dad grew up in Lamoni, Iowa. Remember, he was RLDS. That's where the college is.
That's a stronghold right there.
My grandparents worked at that college. I drove up there, went to the college. They dig out all their yearbooks from that time frame. And there's my grandpa. He was a cook. And his picture's in there. My grandma went to school there, taught there. And so anyways, my daughter didn't know any of this. But apparently we came home and it's been full circle.
Welcome to Zion.
And that made me wonder if Joseph Smith didn't give them an inheritance here. And we really have been called back to Zion.
Well, I know that, my family goes back far enough in Mormondom that there's a belief that someday we'll be called back to Missouri. And we've always thought of it as like, the bishop will announce it and half the world will be like, I don't have time to go anywhere. And the other half will be like, I'm true and faithful and go back. And I think that may be true. It will not be mass migration, and it won't be because your bishop gets up and tells you. It'll be because the Lord says, yep, come on back. I need you here. This is where I want you to be.
I agree.
And I think it's happening.
It is. If you're here, you hear enough stories from people. You're like, why did you move to Missouri? And they're like, well, funny thing.
Oh, wow.
They're called by the Lord, and that's why they're here.
That's where you see that the Lord's creative, because even though they all have that, let me tell you a story, the story is always like, what?
Yep.
And none of them are the same, but they're all that same thread of like, well, the Lord called me back. Here I am.
Exactly.
So I'm just going to repeat that really quickly. So the fundamental idea, there were a lot of pieces of it, but it was that the original church had a flavor, and we've kind of shifted away from that flavor. We have a flavor, like we have a concept of sealing, and it's a very clear cut, this is what sealing is about and how it works, and it's all about this sort of exact eternal family concept that is an exact thing that we crystallize. But back then, it was way more flexible. Like it was not the same shape. It was some of the same things, but it wasn't the same exact shape. And that it's drifted. And you're looking at the drift going, these are things that matter. And these things that matter have been through this metamorphosis. And how does that work?